June 8, 2023, 5:14 a.m. Zaporizhzhia Front, southern Ukraine. 18 Leopard 2A6 main battle tanks cross into combat operations. German engineering, NATO's pride. 60 tons of the most sophisticated armor Western Europe has produced in 40 years. 3 weeks later, 5 of them are destroyed. 2 more damaged beyond field repair. Crews killed, vehicles burning. Western technology reduced to smoking metal across Ukrainian fields. The headlines scream failure. Russian propaganda celebrates Western weakness. Defense analysts question whether modern tanks have any role left in 21st century warfare. This is IronBullet. And what actually happened to those Leopard 2's? The real story behind the losses, the tactical reality those headlines ignore, is going to rewrite everything you think you know about armor in modern combat. Because here's what nobody's talking about. Those 5 destroyed tanks weren't failures. They were sacrifices. And the difference between those 2 words explains why Ukraine is still asking for more Leopards instead of returning them. The official narrative is simple. Western super tanks meet Russian defenses, mines, drones, artillery, tanks burn, West embarrassed. Story over. Every fact in that narrative is true. Every conclusion drawn from those facts is wrong. Stay with me, because what happened in those 3 weeks between June 8th and June 28th wasn't about whether Leopard 2's are effective tanks. It was about whether any tank, Russian, American, German, doesn't matter, can survive what modern defensive warfare has become. And the answer to that question changes everything. Let's establish the baseline. What exactly is a Leopard 2A6? German Krauss Maffei Wegmann design. Now in service since 2001, the upgrade of the original Leopard 2 from 1979. Weight 62.5 tons, length 7.7 meters, width 3.7 meters. Main armament, Rheinmetall 120mm L55 smoothbore gun, longer barrel than earlier variants. Higher muzzle velocity, better penetration at extended range. Protection, composite, armor, exact composition classified, but publicly acknowledged to include layers of steel, ceramics, and other materials. Additional modular armor packages on hull and turret. Mobility MTU MB873KA501 diesel engine, 1,500 horsepower. Top speed 72 km/h on road, 50 km air cross country. Power to weight ratio 24 horsepower per ton. Crew 4. Commander, gunner, loader, driver. Unlike Russian auto-loader tanks, human loader is considered more reliable, more flexible. Fire control, advanced thermal imaging, laser rangefinder, ballistic computer, can engage targets accurately while moving, can identify and engage at ranges exceeding 3,000 meters. Cost, approximately $6 million per tank for the A6 variant. Some estimates go as high as $8 million depending on configuration and support equipment. Combat record before Ukraine, mostly peacekeeping and limited actions. Canadian Leopard 2's in Afghanistan. Danish tanks in the same theater. Some Turkish operations against ISIS. But no peer conflict testing. No fights against near-peer opponents with modern anti-tank weapons, extensive minefields, and massed artillery. Ukraine would be the first real test. The first time Leopard 2's faced an opponent who could shoot back with equivalent technology. The hype was considerable. Western media portrayed these tanks as game changers. Superior armor, superior firepower, superior optics. NATO's answer to Russian numerical advantage. German manufacturers were more cautious. These tanks are good, they said. Among the best, but they're not invincible. No tank is invincible. Proper tactics matter more than armor thickness. Nobody listened to that second part. Not really. The narrative was set. Wonder weapons arrive. Russia's defenses crumble. Ukrainian offensive succeeds. Reality had different plans. June 8, 2023. The 18 Leopard 2A6 tanks are integrated into Ukraine's 47th Mechanized Brigade. This isn't a random assignment. The 47th is one of Ukraine's best trained units. They've received NATO training. Their soldiers have cross-trained on Western equipment. If anyone can maximize the Leopard's potential, it's them. The tanks don't deploy immediately. First week, crew familiarization, learning the systems, understanding the differences between Leopard 2 and Soviet-era tanks most Ukrainian crews trained on. Different turret layout, different fire control procedures, different maintenance requirements, different ammunition handling. The gun is manually loaded. That's a significant change for crews used to auto-loaders. But they adapt. Ukrainian soldiers have proven remarkably capable of learning Western systems quickly. By mid-June, the 47th Mechanized Brigade reports combat-ready status with their Leopard 2 platoons. June 16th, first combat deployment. The mission: breach Russian defensive lines south of Orikhiv. The objective: penetrate to Tokmak, threaten Russian logistics, potentially cut the land bridge to Crimea. The strategic goal is sound. The tactical reality is nightmare fuel. Russian forces have had 16 months to prepare these defenses. Minefields, Dragon's Teeth anti-tank obstacle, trenches, fortified positions, pre-registered artillery zones, drone observation covering every approach route. This isn't fluid mobile warfare. This isn't maneuver combat where tank advantages matter most. This is attritional breakthrough operations against prepared defenses. The worst possible scenario for armor. Ukrainian planners know this. They're not naive. But the strategic imperative demands offensive action. Western aid comes with expectations. Pressure to show progress, to justify continued support. So they attack, with Leopards in the lead. June 16th, 6:45 a.m. 4 Leopard 2A6 tanks advance as part of a combined arms assault. Bradley fighting vehicles, M113 armored personnel carriers, infantry support. Mine-clearing vehicles ahead of the formation. Standard doctrine, everything by the book. The first mine detonates at 6:52 a.m. Not under a Leopard, under a mine-clearing vehicle. The vehicle's disabled. The breach lane is blocked. The column halts. This is the moment. This is where doctrine meets reality. The plan says engineered vehicles clear mines, armor advances through safe lanes, infantry follows, breakthrough achieved. The reality says mine-clearing vehicles are priority targets. They get hit first. Lanes don't get cleared. Armor gets stuck in kill zones. The Leopards halt. They're not taking fire yet. But they're stationary, in open terrain, visible from Russian positions 2,000 meters away. Ukrainian forces attempt to maneuver around the blocked lane. One Leopard moves to find an alternate route. 40 meters later, mine strike. Left track destroyed. Tank immobilized. Still no enemy fire. The Russians are watching, waiting, letting the minefield do its work. 7:03 a.m. Russian artillery opens fire. Not random bombardment. Precision strikes on immobilized vehicles. They've been tracking the assault since it started. Drone observation. Pre-planned fire missions. The immobilized Leopard takes 352 meters rounds in 40 seconds. Turret hit. Hull penetration. Catastrophic damage. Crew bails out. 3 survive. Gunner killed by shrapnel during evacuation. First Leopard 2 destroyed in combat. Not by a sophisticated anti-tank system. By mines and artillery. The same weapons that destroyed tanks in World War II. The assault stalls. Ukrainian forces pulled back. The remaining Leopards withdraw under smoke cover. Mission failed. One tank lost. Others damaged by artillery fragments but repairable. Day 1 assessment, tactical failure. But not because the Leopards performed poorly. They performed exactly as expected. The problem isn't the tanks. It's the operational environment they're being used in. This detail matters. Remember it. June 18th. Second attempt. Different axis. More mine-clearing assets. Better artillery suppression. Ukrainian forces adapt based on the first assault's lessons. Results. 2 more Leopards damaged by mines. One suffers mobility kill, track destroyed, can't move, but main gun and systems functional. Becomes a static pillbox until recovery vehicles can retrieve it. No total losses this time, but no breakthrough either. Russian defenses hold. June 22nd, third assault. Now we're seeing pattern development. Ukrainian tactics evolve. Leopards advance in bounds, better spacing, more infantry support, improved coordination with artillery and drone reconnaissance. Russian tactics evolve too. More aggressive use of FPV kamikaze drones. Lancet loitering munitions targeting stopped vehicles. ATGM teams engaging from concealed positions at maximum range. One Leopard hit by Lancet drone. Engine compartment damage. Fire. Crew evacuates. Tank burns but doesn't explode. Recovered later. Damage assessment, repairable, but requires depot-level maintenance. Another Leopard takes an ATGM hit, Cornet missile. Tandem warhead specifically designed to defeat reactive armor. Penetration on the lower front plate. One crew member killed. Tank abandoned. Score after third assault. 2 more Leopards lost to combat damage. Ukrainian forces penetrate 1.2 kilometers into Russian defensive zones. Progress, but at tremendous cost. Here's what Western media isn't reporting. Both tanks hit by ATGMs were stationary when engaged. Both had been stopped by mine damage or terrain obstacles. Russian gunners didn't engage maneuvering targets. They waited until tanks were immobilized, then fired. This matters. Mobile Leopards with active crews are proving very difficult to destroy. Stopped Leopards are vulnerable, just like every other tank in history. June 26th, fourth major assault. Ukrainian forces commit harder. More Leopards, more supporting units, heavier artillery preparation. They achieve a limited breach, 2.3 kilometers penetration. Several Russian positions overrun. Tactical success, cost. 1 more Leopard destroyed by artillery. Another damaged severely by multiple drone strikes. Crew survives, but tank is combat loss. But here's the critical detail everyone misses. The Leopards that actually engaged Russian armor won every direct engagement. 3 separate instances of Leopard 2 versus Russian T-72 or T-80. All 3 Russian tanks destroyed. All 3 Leopards survived the engagements and withdrew successfully. The Leopards weren't being defeated in tank combat. They were being defeated by the defensive system. Mines channeling movement, drones identifying stopped vehicles, artillery and ATGMs engaging immobilized targets. Remove the mines and the engagement calculus changed completely. But you can't remove the mines. That's the problem. By June 28th, the count is 5 Leopard 2 A6 tanks destroyed or damaged beyond field repair. 2 more with significant damage requiring depot maintenance. 11 still operational. Western media declares the offensive a failure. Russian sources mock NATO equipment. Social media explodes with hot takes about Western tanks being overrated. But here's what nobody's asking. Compared to what? Ukrainian forces also deployed T-64s, T-72s and T-80s in the same operations. Soviet-era tanks, less sophisticated, cheaper, more numerous. Their loss rate higher, significantly higher. When Ukrainian units attacked with T-64s in similar conditions, they lost 7 tanks out of 15 deployed in the first week. The Leopards lost 5 out of 18 over 3 weeks. The Leopards weren't failing. They were failing less than every other option available. This is the truth nobody wants to hear, because it's not satisfying. It doesn't support any clean narrative. Western equipment isn't invincible, but it's measurably better at keeping crews alive and remaining combat effective under the same impossible conditions. Let me show you the crew survival data. This is where perception diverges from reality. 5 Leopards destroyed. Total crew across those 5 tanks, 20 soldiers. Casualties 4 killed, 9 wounded, 7 uninjured. Survival rate 80% survived, 55% uninjured or lightly wounded. Compared to T-64 losses in the same operational period. 7 tanks destroyed, 21 crew members. Casualties 14 killed, 5 wounded, 2 uninjured. Survival rate 33% survived, less than 10% uninjured. The Leopard's armor is saving lives even when the tank is destroyed. The crew compartment protection works. The ammunition storage separation works. The blowout panels work. Russian tanks with auto-loaders and carousel ammunition storage. Catastrophic kills. Turrets blown off. Entire crews dead. Western tanks with manual loaders and isolated ammunition. Mobility kills and fires. Crews evacuate. Soldiers survive to fight again. This is the metric that actually matters. Not whether tanks get destroyed. They do. Always have. Always will. The question is whether the crew survives to crew another tank. And on that metric, the Leopard 2 is performing exactly as designed. Now let's address the bigger question. The one that determines whether the hype was justified. Were Leopard 2s the right tool for this mission? Honest answer, no. Nothing is the right tool for this mission. Breaching prepared defenses with extensive minefields and constant drone observation isn't what modern tanks are designed for. It's what World War I trenches were designed to stop. We invented tanks in 1916 to solve this exact problem, and we're still struggling with it in 2023. The difference is sophistication. World War I obstacles were barbed wire and machine guns. Modern obstacles are smart mines that can differentiate between armored and unarmored vehicles. Loitering munitions that can wait hours for the perfect target. Artillery with GPS guidance and drone spotters providing real-time targeting data. You don't defeat that with better armor. You defeat it with combined arms coordination, overwhelming firepower, and accepting casualties to achieve breakthrough. Ukraine is doing all three, and still making minimal progress, because the defender's advantage in modern warfare is stronger than it's been since 1918. The Leopard 2s aren't failing at their job. Their job is impossible. They're succeeding at staying alive longer while attempting the impossible. That's not nothing. So was the hype justified? Depends on what you think was hyped. If you believed Leopards would drive through Russian defenses like a hot knife through butter. No, that was never realistic. Anyone who promised that was lying or delusional. If you believed Leopards would give Ukrainian crews better odds of survival and better combat effectiveness than Soviet-era alternatives. Yes, absolutely. The data confirms it. The problem isn't that Western equipment failed to meet realistic expectations. The problem is that expectations were never realistic to begin with. Modern defensive warfare with unlimited drone observation, precision artillery, and extensive obstacles has made armored breakthrough operations nearly obsolete. Not just for Leopards, For everything. Russian tanks aren't faring any better when they try offensive operations. The Leopard 2's failure is actually the failure of armored doctrine in the face of modern defensive technology. That's a much bigger problem than whether one specific tank is good or not. 3 questions from the beginning. Time to answer them. Was the hype justified? Partially. The Leopards perform better than alternatives in the same conditions. But no tank can overcome the fundamental problem. Modern defenses are stronger than modern offenses. The hype about breakthrough capability was never justified. The hype about crew protection and combat effectiveness was completely justified. What actually destroyed those 5 Leopards? Mines immobilized them. Drones spotted them. Artillery or ATGMs finished them. Not Russian tanks. Not superior enemy equipment. The defensive system. The same system that's destroying every tank that tries to breach it, regardless of origin. Could anything have prevented those losses? Not without different operational conditions. You want to save tanks? Don't send them against prepared defenses with extensive minefields and constant drone observation. But Ukraine doesn't have that choice. The strategic situation demands offensive operations. So tanks get used in the worst possible conditions, and they die. That's not a Leopard 2 problem. That's a modern warfare problem. The lesson here isn't that Western tanks are overrated. The lesson is that everyone underestimated how much defensive technology has evolved. Mines are smarter. Drones are everywhere. Artillery is more accurate. Obstacles are more extensive. And the offensive tools, tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, combined arms maneuver, haven't evolved enough to overcome those defensive advantages. The Leopard 2 is doing exactly what it was designed to do: protect crews, engage enemy armor effectively, survive hits that would destroy lesser vehicles. It's not designed to make minefields disappear or artillery stop firing or drones stop watching. Nobody's designed that tank because that tank can't exist. Not with current technology. This is IronBullet. We analyze the battles that change wars. And the Leopard 2's combat debut changed how we understand modern armored warfare. Not because it failed, because it succeeded at the wrong mission. The mission itself is the problem, and until someone solves the mine, drone, artillery, defensive triad, every tank will face the same challenge. The fields south of Orikhiv are scarred with destroyed vehicles, Russian and Ukrainian. NATO and Soviet, premium and budget, all of them vulnerable to the same threats. Advanced armor doesn't overcome modern defenses. It just costs more when it burns, but it keeps crews alive. And in a war of attrition, the side that preserves trained soldiers wins, even if they lose equipment. That's the real story of the Leopard 2 in Ukraine. Not invincible, but more survivable. Not a war winner, but a crew saver. Subscribe to IronBullet, because in modern warfare, understanding what's actually possible matters more than believing in wonder weapons. 5 Leopards destroyed. 16 crew members survived. That's not failure. That's the definition of armor working as designed. The tank's job isn't to be indestructible. It's to protect the people inside. If you think modern tanks still matter in 21st century warfare, type IronBullet in the comments. If you think we need a completely new approach to ground combat, tell me what it is, because the old doctrines are dying in Ukrainian minefields. Germany's pride burned, but the crews walked away. That's victory in a war where survival is measured in percentages, not glory. Real battles, real tactics, real consequences. Stay vigilant.